What is up, podheads? Or should I say Toddheads? Are you here for Todd? Maybe. Yes, hopefully.
He'll like that.
My name is Tony. This is the Potty Slay podcast. I am joined, as always, by Anthony. How you doing, man?
You know, man, I'm doing better than good. I always say good just out of habit. Like if anyone says, how you doing? Tonight, fantastic. Great week. Great conversation. Shitload of good music coming out. Like this is 2023 is I think we're going to look back at 2023 as an all-time music output year. And the irony is like with Honor on the podcast this week, a lot of the great output is coming from Pure Noise.
It's wild, right? And I mean, they just keep winning. And it's stuff that we both like, and that's probably why we think that. But like, I think a lot of people would agree with us that whether it's bringing bands back to put out new music for the first time in 18 years in the case of With Honor, or the new Koyo record, which we obviously love, and stuff like that. It's just, they just keep fucking crushing it, man.
And I think like it could, like, I'm sure all these bands could put these records out on another label, but Pure Noise has the platform, they got the momentum, and it reminds me of like almost like Drive Through or like Victory in its heyday, where it's like, all right, whoever they sign, I'm probably gonna check out at this point. And it's all over the map. Like it's as people that like all kinds of music as we do. If you listen to this podcast, we're what, 180?
I think this will be 187. Yeah,
187 episodes in. We've had every genre known to man, and I think like that jives with Pure Noise. So
yeah, and I mean, this was a fun one for me as a new fan of the band With Honor, but I was really excited for you, man. Like this is something that we've talked about. Like let's see if we can get somebody from that band on before they had announced putting out a new record and all this stuff, just because it was something that you lived in the early 2000s, and I was happy to like see how happy you were to get this one, because this is a fun one.
This is a special one. This was like a grail. Like I think we say this when we start with Todd, which is like we wanted to have someone from the band on, but before this whole reunion and the new record Boundless on Pure Noise, like I didn't know where they were at. Like I know they'd done some reunions, but like as fans we always assume maybe members are on good terms, but you never know. You really never know. So it was kind of a stay away. Like let's park that one. But yeah, I've been a fan since 2003, and we talk, I think before we start recording with Todd, we talk about what the first With Honor t-shirt was, because I'm wearing a With Honor t-shirt, but it was an iteration of this t-shirt that was the very first one, and that's actually how I came to be a fan. Freshman year of college, 2003, my dorm room buddy was wearing that brown With Honor tee with the tan letters, and I knew he liked good music because he had a bunch of band t-shirts. He had With Honor. I'd never heard of them. And that speaks to the regionality, which comes up in this episode. That's kind of how we became friends, which is he was wearing a With Honor tee, and he was from Kensington, Connecticut, which I don't think is too far from where With Honor started. And the rest is history. Here we are.
And you're still wearing it. You're able to fit into that medium, which is fucking wild. Good for you, man.
It's like a medium. I'm a large for the record. And this tee is, I show my wife, like, I showed my wife this t-shirt like a few years ago, and she's like, why do you still have that? It doesn't fit. And I'm like,
that's amazing.
It's sentimental.
Yeah, no, this isn't going anywhere. This is staying in a bin in the basement. And then every now and then I might pull it out and look at it, or put it on to interview Todd Mackey. So here we are, coming full circle. You're wearing a shirt from 20 years ago. We get to talk to Todd about it, the new record from With Honor, and all the stuff behind them as well. And it was a badass time. It was an awesome conversation, and we're hoping that you enjoy it too.
Let's get into it. Todd Mackey, With Honor. Let's go. We're here. Todd Mackey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks so much for having me on. This is a treat.
It's a treat for us. Like I know we were chatting before we formally started recording, and we've been doing this podcast for 3.5 years. We have our like holy grail artists. Like we'd love to have Dave Grohl on, Henry Rollins, like, but those aren't going to happen, right? But then there's like the special bands that we have had on our radar for a while, but like we don't know where the band stands. You know what I mean? Like, is the interview that we would get, would it impact the music? Does the band still like each other? So fast forward to now, you guys are back together. So we're like, Right. Well, they don't hate each other. Like it's been 18 years.
Certainly not.
Yeah. So here we are. So appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on.
Well, thank you so much for the, like I said, thank you for the opportunity. But yeah, it's been a real, I guess, to sound very woo woo. It's been a real gift to circle back and to make music again with honor, and certainly excited to get to chat with folks about the process and what we've been doing these days. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and like we were chatting before, and we'll cut a part of this video so the listeners will be able to see that I'm wearing a With Honor t-shirt. I don't do that. Like I did that for the Chad Neptune Further Seems Forever episode. I think I did it for a few others, but it's like the elite company. So for you guys kind of scratched every itch for me. Like you were on Stillborn, so you had that, that edge, but you were melodic and,
we sounded mean at times.
Yeah, you could. Like those melody, those breakdowns, it was like everything 18-year-old me was like, I can be myself and like you guys, because you, in my eyes, it was like you were equal to me. Like there was no basketball jerseys, there was no mohawks. Like it was just, I could relate. So that was the big draw in 2003.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm so thankful to hear that, and I also feel like that's a really special thing. I mean, I am flattered and humbled when people share that kind of like that buy-in, and especially when someone in putting out music 17, 18 years later, where someone like yourself would elect to dig in and actually like cross that bridge with us. I mean, it's a big deal. So that means a lot to me. Thank you for doing it and showing up in the gear.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wearing anything right now, but I chose this one. It's a medium too. Like it's like a muscle shirt. Like I kind of feel empowered right now.
You're doing good. What so you're both based in Maine. Tell me, have you always been? Like would we have seen you in Portland, or would we have seen you? We played a handful of shows in I want to say Bucksport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would have been Bucksport, would have been Auburn, Maine. But I lived in Massachusetts for 4 years, so it would have been Worcester. It would have been the ICC. All that era.
The heyday.
It's the reason that I came to you guys late. Anthony and I have been friends for just about 30 years now, and that 4-year blip where he was at college and I was at college at different places. Is when he found you guys, and I wasn't. I mean, I was still in Maine, so you guys weren't coming to anywhere near where I was, and didn't know enough about it. But man, it always bums me out when I hear about all the stuff that you did, Twan, back then. Like seeing these guys and being able to go to some of those, just seeing Return to the Pit pictures of shows from that era. I'm like, fuck, man, I would have loved to have been at that.
Yeah, I mean, Worcester, Boston, Connecticut, like the scene where we came out of, I mean, it was insane. Because I used to go to a lot of shows at the Espresso Bar in Worcester, and then the Palladium, and I grew up just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and so a lot of the shows I would go to were in Western Mass too. But all these like numerous sort of central areas that would draw these tours in. I mean, it felt like you could go to 5 or 6 shows a week in that time. And I mean, I felt very spoiled, and I feel like, I mean, we played Maine quite a bit, but
you did. Yeah.
We must have played. It was like we had a residency at the Palladium.
I saw you guys upstairs there quite a bit. How old are you, Todd?
Let me make sure I'm doing the math right.
You don't have to tell us if you don't want to. It's okay.
No, I'm just making sure. It's like I think about it every now and then. I'm 41 years old.
Oh, so you were, in my eyes, that was the golden era. I'm 37, Tony's 39. Yeah. But like that, man, I wish I was like 3 to 4 years older. Like, because we missed the whole late 90s era.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because looking back, like a lot of the shows that are popping up now with the classic, I mean, like just coming off of Furnace Fest, and it's like One King Down, Strife, like you see these bands that Snapcase, they didn't play Furnace Fest, but I'm just, pulling them in. But like those bands, along with In My Eyes and Hatebreed, and, I mean, it was like, it felt as though that was like a regular show you would see in the Earth Crisis. I mean, Vision of Disorder from Long Island. I mean, and that was my inception, around that time. So yeah, I feel very lucky, though. I think everybody would say they wish they were a few years ahead, because I still look at
we said that same thing. We said that.
Yeah,
we said that. Yeah.
I could have seen that.
The era before you got into it is always the era that you look at and you're like, shit, I missed that. But then, like, I could see you guys in Guns Up and Verse and Have Heart in a weekend, and now it would draw 5,000 people.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it was fully bonkers. Trust. I do think there's some sort of effect, at least for me. Like, I was the kid who like kept all the show flyers, even if I had no hope of going to the show. So I just there are these shows looking back that were in that, like, just ahead of when I was really self-directed and was able to kind of like go to anything I really wanted to, i.e. I could drive myself and,
right.
And get there. Yeah. But, there's still these shows that, you sort of have in your mind imprinted that you're like, oh, if only I could have seen that. There's plenty, but.
Well, one of those is Cave Fest 03 up in Bucksport. Yeah. Like, I had never heard of you. I got into you guys later that fall, and I look at that flyer and I'm like, motherfucker, what was I?
I was going to say, I think there was like, I mean, I know we played the Cave. We did that show. We did, we played the Cave, I want to say, on the Revenge tour. I think it was the Cave. Maybe well,
you did the Halloween show. It was a big 2-day Halloween fest. I went to that one.
Okay. Because that was Most Precious Blood and Walls of Jericho.
Exactly. I think Red Chord too. Like,
oh yeah, there's
I have the flyer to that, and it's like this is like a Tattoo the Earth fest now or something. You know what I mean? Like, and it was up in Maine. Yeah,
and like in like rural-ish Maine. I mean, sort of.
Oh yeah.
Right, like that place. You'd roll up on that place, and you're like, really? This is the show. There's a venue here, like right here.
And then like bands go to it, and I mean, it's legendary. It's wild. It is the kind of middle of nowhere, kind of down, almost not quite down east, Maine. If you look at it on a map, look at Bangor and then go east a little bit. It's right there, kind of east and south, and you can't miss it. But you'd be very surprised as to, like, it's not in Portland or just outside of Portland. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, in all the years we were active early on, I think we might have played Portland twice. I mean, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot going on, like, in Portland proper.
You guys played the Industry with
wow, really?
The Distance and the Risk Taken and local Stand or Fall. They were local boys, but
my wife and I walked by there that building today, and I was like, remember the Industry?
Well, there was a chain link fence in there. I don't know how good your memory is, Todd. But
I don't remember that. This is the spot, like, right in Old Port, right? Like right towards the Old Port.
Yep.
Yeah, on the cobble street there. I remember.
Yes, that's exactly Wharf Street. Yeah.
Big fan of Maine, by the way.
Nice. Yeah, it's
Maine
not
rules,
too bad.
man.
I mean, we're recording this early October. It was almost 80 degrees today, so occasionally we get nice weather. So especially late, this is late in the year to have that warm of a day. But we were walking around the Old Port today, right by that very area. So nerdvoyance, as we say, one of those things that, like, it's going to come up again later. We don't even know how.
Yep, killer.
So you, like you said, like we said, you're a few years older than us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get into your upbringing and all that. I think I've heard you do that on other podcasts, but like, how does With Honor start? Like, I don't even know. I know, like, you were in Life on Your Way and Hamartia was a band. You guys form in 2002.
Yeah.
Like, was there a, hey, seen you at shows? What's going on? Like,
yeah. So Jay and Jeff, who play guitar in With Honor, they are brothers. They were playing in Hamartia, same roles, and they, along with John, who is our drummer, who was playing drums. I mean, he's playing in a number of different bands. He's, the three of them are also key members of Ambitions, as well as a number of other bands since and before. But John was playing in a Connecticut metalcore band called A Heart Fades Forever with Greg from The Risk Taken. And
never heard them.
Jack, who plays bass for With Honor. And Jack at the time was also in a Connecticut band. If you don't know, you should, In Pieces.
So it's funny. That was going to be a question for you, Todd, which is, I know Hamartia, I know Life in Your Way. I remember In Pieces was in the mix. For some reason, I thought you might have been in that, in Pieces.
No, I would have loved to. I mean, I wish I was in that. I love that band. I think
I have one of the albums, or maybe an EP.
Yeah, they put out an EP and a full length. There was the full length was called Learning to Accept Silence. I mean, both really good. But yeah, Jack was playing bass in Pieces. And yeah, so really Jeff and Jay started the band. They pulled John. They went, recorded a demo, and basically tracked music. And this was actually recorded with, if you know Adam D from Killswitch Engage.
Oh, yeah.
Went up to Zing, recorded a demo. And so they basically had all this music. And at the time, Slim and Mark from Hamartia left to do Bury Your Dead, or maybe didn't leave. It was just kind of this squishy gray area. I'm not an expert on that happening, so it's more unknown to me. But either way, I think Jeff, I was playing guitar in Life in Your Way. We would all play shows together, and Jeff knew I played drums. Like, drums are my first instrument.
Wow, you're another one of those that plays every fucking instrument.
Yeah, so beginning of Life in Your Way days, I played drums. Then I moved over to guitar because I was writing a lot, and I just wanted to kind of get out front or whatever. So yeah, I think he originally actually had me to their practice space because I think he wanted me to play drums for Hamartia, but it was like I'm not really like super metal focused or driven. So, it was fun to jam. And then we started talking about this project, and he played me the demo, and I was taken by it. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And they were struggling to find a vocalist. So they had tried out a couple people, nothing had worked. And the project had sort of, they had pulled Jack by this point, or Jack was like, yeah, I want in, let's do something. Everything's sort of coalescing. And meanwhile, Jeff was tapped by good old friends who were forming a new band out of the end of Seven Angels, Seven Plagues called Misery Signals.
Oh yeah.
And Jeff was leaving to go to Milwaukee to move to join Misery Signals.
Shit. Man, you heard it first here. All you Misery Signals historians.
Yeah. So if you they just re-released their initial demo on 7-inch, just came out last week. And Jeff was a writer and was involved in recording that. So anyway, long story short, they basically got to a spot where they were like, you know what, we can't really pursue this, but we want to do one show where it was really dramatic, like where Jay and Jeff could play together one last time, right? Before Jeff left. Like, as though someone's fallen off the face of the earth or something. But they needed someone to sing. And so it was like, okay, cool. I'll take the demo. I'll put vocals to it. And we had a show. And that was the first With Honor show. And Misery Signals played, and Jeff left, basically went to the show with us and then left with Misery Signals. And we didn't see him for months until we played a couple shows together on our first tour. But it was at that point, the thought was, okay, we'll do this show. And then it was, well, we did the show. Do you want to just record vocals to the demo and we'll see how it sounds? And that was our first EP.
Was that the first time you had done the vocals thing? Because you've been playing drums.
Yeah, I played drums. I ended up playing guitar. I sang a little bit playing guitar, but yeah, I never sang for another band.
Wow.
So yeah, we went in and recorded the vocals, and it was awesome. We had a lot of fun doing it. I loved getting to write for it. It clicked, for us, it clicked. And then we kind of said to ourselves, well, the demo sounds good. And immediately Jay and Jamie at Stillborn, they jumped right in with us and basically opened up, every early opportunity for us.
Wow.
And we decided, later that year, within a few months, really, we decided let's put some sort of East Coast thing together. we knew Misery Signals was going to be in the Southeast. So we were like, we'll do a couple shows. We'll get down to them. We'll play a couple shows together. And then we'll, turn around and head home. And that was our first tour. And I think on like day 3 or 4, we played with Roger Murray and the Disasters in,
nice. That's cool.
in Charlotte. And Roger loved us and came up to me after, and he's like, he's like, what are you guys doing on Sunday?
Wow.
And we were like playing in Philly area on Saturday, and I was like, nothing. What's happening? He's like, you should come to CB's. Be there for 4:00. We're like, okay, cool. Roger Murray says, come to CB's. Like, we showed up, and it was their 20th anniversary show, Agnostic Front, with Murphy's Law and Death Threat. And we jumped up on Agnostic Front's equipment and played a set by their invite, and like, ended up touring with them randomly. You'd never think like a band from suburban Connecticut. I guess it kind of follows in the pattern of like early youth crew stuff, but they just took to us. And so we toured a bunch with Roger and Vinny and the Agnostic crew. And we toured a bunch with Sick of It All and Madball, just in that whole, H2O as well. They were always so awesome to us.
You know what that screams to me? It's like when you haven't seen someone in a while, you're like, we should hang out sometime. And then like, you don't expect it to actually happen. And then like, did they put you on the flyers and everything? Or?
I mean, it was days before. It wasn't even a week before. So it was literally like he said something to the effect of, and this is far enough back where I don't remember the exact words, but he like came up to our merch table and he's like, I really like you. You guys remind me of like youth of today, or just good energy, like really positive. And we played so damn fast at that point, right? And I think he just thought it was thrashy. And so yeah, like I think it was not even our 10th show, that show.
Wow. Damn. So all of a sudden you're going from, hey, you want to just do the vocals for this, the EP, and then all of a sudden you're pulling that shit off. That's fucking wild that quick.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's like an energy thing, right? I mean, it still is. It's like when the music hits and you pick up the microphone, and then like, not black out, for 40 minutes, but you basically just like go to the wall. And I don't know. I've always loved the energy of that this kind of music creates for that reason,
So I don't want to gloss over the EP. The EP is all time for me. That was the intro for me getting in that era. So were those songs written when you came in? Like musically?
Musically, so literally the EP is the band's demo.
Sure. Yeah.
And the music was done and handed to me, and I wrote the vocals to the exact music as it is.
So sick. That's awesome.
And then we recorded the vocals, and then we were like, well, we should probably like go play the songs a few places. And then we finished that run by like swinging through CBGBs. And then, yeah, like I said, I mean, really like Jay Reason and Jamie at Stillborn, I mean, they just continued to create opportunities for us over and over and over again. And it really became, Connecticut has always and continues to have a really special scene, but like it was, I think of the things that I'm like very thankful for, and really like just super humbled by is like, there was a moment with that, and not just on us, but because of a good handful of really special bands all at the same moment, it got really special. Like those early 2000s years in Connecticut, I mean, it was super, super special. So yeah, everything happened so fast. It's funny. I was saying to the guys this past week when we were down in Birmingham, like we were just joking. I'm like, we were active. I mean, when we were active, we were like a full-time band, but like it took us, 2 to 3 years to put together the Boundless record, just with all the stuff going on in life and the tail end of the pandemic and stuff. But it's like that amount of time would have been a significant portion of the overall like full-time active moment of the band.
That's so funny because I had that realization in preparation for this because like, I mean, we're talking 18 years ago when you guys last put out the last album, and you left, and hopefully we'll get into that in a second. But like, I was thinking to myself, you guys are only active from 02 to 06. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think we take for granted a lot of those, like a lot of bands in the moment, and like this is one of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a testament to like how interesting like creative contributions, generally speaking, are, right? And I'm not shining that light on us to say, wow, we're so important. Because like, we're a blip, in the grand scheme. Like, but I mean to say like the moments of like creative offering or creative, like that thing that gets pushed out of you that is like a special representative thing of an idea or a time, they're very limited, And I mean, you see it with artists and musicians of all kinds, where you're like, yeah, that this person who's known for these songs, like maybe they were only writing for like, 5 out of 70 years or something, and I mean, I think we imagine, I think in a more modern sense, that we can do that anytime we want, and life just doesn't work that way. So it's fun to look back and to kind of realize like, wow, it felt like a lifetime that we were touring, because we were too high pressure on ourselves at that time. We were trying to do everything right. And but looking back, it's like, oh, that wasn't even really, that was like a small, like short season,
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's just, hey, that's the nature of obviously being that age. And then you get to our age now, late 30s, early 40s, and you're like, that did not take very long. That went by really fast. Yeah, and totally. To not, in the moment, it feels like forever. I mean, college felt really long. I was there for 4.5 years, and it took quite a while. And then looking at it now, I'm like, that happened so fucking fast for you to be, hitting the road, playing for wherever you're playing night after night after night. And it feels like in the moment it's every night it's the same thing over and over again, but then it's over and you're like, holy shit, that happened really fucking fast, because that's the way it all works now.
Yeah. No, and I mean it is very transient. Even like so many friendships where, Furnace Fest was great for seeing friends I haven't seen in ages. It's one of those things that you kind of like, you realize people are very special, but it's hard because a lot of people that you pick up these relationships with, you end up, there's not in life without being on tour, it's really hard and or impossible, abnormal to like fully maintain those relationships,
Totally.
So it's wild to, the closeness and connection isn't there necessarily to remind you of like, the kind of wealth of experience that it all created. But it's super, super cool to get back out and see people, and see people like bands that we were touring with at that time play again, and some that are like beyond what they were and in their prime. It's like, then that's super cool.
Well, I think that gets lost with a lot of people. It's like, well, some of these bands, including yourself, haven't put out an album in 20 years. Well, most of them are probably still playing their instrument and probably got better,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because it's like such a grueling genre. Like, I mean, you can't physically, it is so demanding. So like, you see bands playing, like everybody gets off and they're like, oh, holy shit, I'm gonna die, which is, it's a real thing, but it is super cool. It's also cool to see people mature and grow like as people and see that reflected in music, the perspective and stuff like that.
Well, and you're right, the genre is demanding physically live, I would imagine, just watching what people do in the back as a 39-year-old. Like, and I remember being up in the front when I was 22, like, yeah, let's get in there and have some fun, but it doesn't get easier as you get older to do that stuff. It gets harder.
Yeah.
So Todd, you guys, the EP comes out, Jamie takes notice. Well, he took notice and then put out the EP. He puts out Heart Means Everything for you guys. The Distance Split is in there, which I love. Gun for Hire, I think, is top 3 songs for me.
Cool.
And then Victory takes notice. And I was always curious about that, because in that era, they had clearly shifted from what they were, putting out in the 90s. So they had Comeback Kid, you guys, maybe a couple others of your ilk. But how did that come about? Like, you guys pivoting to Victory?
Sure. Well, yeah. So, the demo, we kind of did the whole like burn CDs and put them out thing.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
Jamie and Jay picked it up and made it a proper release within about 6 months. So it was fast. And then before a year went by, we were in recording Heart Means Everything, and yeah, and then after that point, we I think at that time it was still very common for people to have, if you had the support of a label, it really meant something at the time, right? And I
Totally.
think,
Yeah.
that's a very squishy thing now, albeit, that's not any sort of indirect commentary on Pure Noise, who has been absolutely fantastic to us. It's more like, I think there's a lot of pathways with or without, But yeah, so we knew kind of coming off the first full length that it was kind of open conversations that we were probably going to pursue a bigger a label with wider distribution, and that wanted to do more. Their model was to do more like direct promotional support, and we courted a few different labels. So I mean, it was not just Victory. We kind of had the opportunity to to record some demos and pass them around and interface with a few different labels. The interesting thing about, and I think what probably pushed us over an edge with Victory, despite some of the changes in the years ahead of our signing, and then obvious like warning signs, right? Was the fact that with Comeback Kid, they were kind of, their whole shtick was the return of hardcore, right? So it had been like
Wake the Dead was on another planet.
yeah. And they loved it, and they were high. Like, we did the Wake the Dead tour. It was Bane, Comeback Kid with Honor, Silent Drive.
Insane.
And that was, I mean, it was an amazing tour. They were skyrocketing. Like the prominence of Wake the Dead and the splash that it made was huge. And we saw, Victory's direct involvement in that. And their whole like shtick was, hey, it's going to be California takeover all over again, new generation of bands, right?
You're in for that, yeah.
When that was like, the Victory catalog was like the vector for, 80% of the important records, on the way up. It's hard not to get drawn into that as totally. Like a mold to that flame, you know what I mean? So. And that's not to say that it was an inherently bad experience. I mean, I think that they were going every direction. It wasn't that they were returning to hardcore. It was just kind of like, hey, we want to do that too. And yeah, thankfully we were able to record with Brian McTernan, which was a dream come true.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Easily, I mean, my favorite records of the post-hardcore and hardcore genres.
Ours too.
Right, two of our favorite conversations we've had have been Brian related, or Brian on the pod with us. So
yeah, coolest guy, amazing artistic person. Like, and that experience was like, for me, just absolutely huge. And yeah, we got to record at the Beltsville studio. We were one of the last projects there, which was I mean, for me,
that's
as
awesome.
Like a nerd for a good handful of records, to record in that same place. I mean, it carries the energy's there, right? So yeah, that was kind of how it happened. Hopefully I'm getting to your question.
This is all amazing. No,
it's
I love it. And the Brian stuff, they're talking about, we had him with Vinny Caruana. Okay. I don't know how many episodes back now, 4 or 5, and talking about Movie Life, 40-hour train back to Penn. And Brian had this realization. He found this book of photos of everybody. Now, he couldn't show it to us, which I completely understand. But do you remember this? Were you part of that in any way, shape, or form?
It was a singles ad.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Todd's like, yeah, but I'm gonna say no.
I don't think so. I don't remember this. I do remember that like the lyrics to would it have been Caution? I'm trying to remember which album. I'm a big Hot Water Music fan, and like the lyrics from them.
It was Caution. It was Caution.
Still up on up on the like slider patio doors of like, you know, because you would the old or not old salad days, but the salad days in Beltsville, you would stay in the basement of the house, and you know the studio was out back, but you'd walk through these doors and the lyric sheets were up, and it was like when we got there, that was one of those like kid in a candy store moments. I just
Vinny hadn't stolen those yet, Twan. Brian told us, I think he's working with them right now on their new thing. So
no way. That's cool.
yeah, and I'm not breaking news. He told us that on the episode. It's back there. So I'm not talking out of school, I don't think. But
no, that's awesome. I mean, I'm so glad I'm a huge fan of Be Well. Like I love the music he's making, and I mean, anything he touches, like I'm without a doubt interested in. So it was a real dream come true to be in that studio with him. And I should say him and Mike Schlabbaum, who is a wonderful guy and does great work. You know, the two of them together, incredible.
That was a special time for you guys. Like I remember hearing about the victory news, and I was kind of surprised, but I was like, no, this is amazing. Like this is awesome. And then like Trumpets was the first time I heard anything off the album, and I was like, well, shit, I didn't know they had this in them. Like this is awesome.
Cool. Yeah. No, I mean, we oscillated back and forth making that album of like extreme confidence that like what we could do, we just hadn't scratched the surface yet.
Right on. Yeah.
And simultaneously, like we had been immersed in like what was cool at the time. Like, you know, you're on tours with bands like incredible bands like Terror and Most Precious Blood and The Promise, and, you know, bands that there were like had a very different energy than us and a different sound. And I think we were putting together this record and still kind of tossing back and forth over, you know, how to really embrace with confidence, like, hey, this is where we're going. Do you know what I mean? Because it's, you know, I think anyone who wouldn't tell you, or who would tell you they don't care, like the feedback they get straight away, is lying, right? But like, you know, as a much younger, I would say, kid at the time, it's like, you know, the straightaway feedback was like, oh, what are you guys doing? Right. Which is funny because we play the songs years later and it's like the stuff that everybody loves. I mean, hopefully until they hear our new record and they love that too. But it was not like the immediate sentiment was not like, oh, wow, this is incredible. I mean, it was a big change for a lot of people.
Well, that's always tough, I would imagine, as a band. I know as a fan, we are kind of a different breed, Anthony and I. We like when bands take chances and do something different. We want things to be interesting, but some people just want you to do what you've always done because they love that stuff. And when you take a chance and change it up a little bit, maybe you alienate some people, but at the same time, you're trying to bring more people into the barn. You want more people to know about you and hear different things and show that you can do more than, you know, the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because our demo, you know, the EP was very melodic, even though the vocals had not sort of taken on as much melody as the Revenge record later did. It was sort of a reversal of that recording Heart Means Everything for a number of different reasons, you know. There really wasn't any of that. And so, yeah, I think it was just like, you know, it was our youth. It was like being you know, insecure in ways, if I'm honest. And, you know, I thought walking away from Salad Days with the Revenge record, like I was so stoked. And the tour, we did one full US tour before the band, you know, kind of changed up and I left, but it was an incredible tour and it was awesome to share those songs. I absolutely love playing those songs in our current set. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely the material that to me has aged the most gracefully with me, just, you know, even on content, you know what I mean?
Right on. Yeah. No, that was a special time, and we're not going to get into like the details of you leaving. We'll park that. But like, I'm digging deep into my memory banks. When you left, you started something else. Was it like a jazz band, or what was that? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't start anything that was on the, like, it wasn't like a band that was like seriously going for it or anything. I played in like this indie project.
Okay, maybe that's. I tried to look it up. There's nothing on the web about it, but I remember in the moment you had kind of resurfaced with something that was very different, and I liked it. And I was like, I don't even, is that Todd? And it was you, and
Yeah.
it was good. It was just very different. But in my head, I was like, was it indie? Was it jazz? What was
Yeah, it
that?
was sort of like indie, very poppy. Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing jazz, so but I never recorded anything. Like that was
Right on.
like I grew up playing drums in jazz bands, little bop combos and stuff. And yeah, I always like wrote songs. I still do, like, just like me and a guitar. It's part like just wanting to be creative, part like, loving, all sorts of singer songwriter music and folk and indie and stuff. Always have. And also, the ever present, though fewer and further between sets where I'm like singing my kids to sleep at night.
There you go.
But yeah, so there was definitely a little bit of dabbling in a few things, but yeah, we never like really released anything or played a whole lot. I had a handful of shows where I just played like myself, like with an acoustic guitar, which was fun. And I've always sort of like fooled around in the like not really, but in my mind type of way of like, oh, this would be cool to do. But it's like
Singer songwriter style. Yeah.
kind of sort of, but I just love working with people, you know?
Right on.
Yep.
And yeah, like it's beyond just like clicking creatively. It's also like getting people who like actually want to put in the work. I mean, that is very unusual.
Right. Yeah. I think as fans, we kind of like take that for granted. Like we look at our favorite bands and we're like, well, they're a perfect family and they're grinding, and some do, some don't. It's interesting.
Yeah.
We've learned from this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's no like knock from my end, but one of the things that I think is really special about With Honor and how we're doing this record is it's the same band, and
Totally.
really like, it's not to say like, oh, bands that have, evolved and new members. Sometimes that's like not even okay. It's like the best thing that could happen. But
Right. Yeah.
but it's I think I've always thought it was very special that this band, was and remains the same people. It's increasingly unusual, and for good reasons, right? Life changes and people go different ways. But yeah, to actually align with people who are like, hey, we click and we have at this point like decades of shared history, and we're all willing to like lift whatever we have to like make it happen. That's pretty unusual. So
And you did the couple of reunion shows, so it sounds like you guys never really called it quits. Like there's always maybe a little bit of like, this may happen again. We may do this again down the road.
yeah, I mean, I think we did, in that like you had to at the time. It was really adolescent. I mean, really,
Right.
we were touring too much. We were split as everyone was, of like some people wanting to grow the band, like as a directive, like, hey, we need to grow the band because we need this to like be our living, right? Whereas others, we would go home and we were happy to like, work odd jobs and make, scratch out whatever we needed. And, we ended up in this spot where, yeah, like, lifestyle of it all was really grueling. And, just even how we split was more like fatigue and adolescence than really, oh man, this is totally dysfunctional,
I mean, I'm doing the math. You guys were 23, 24. Like people don't, in the context of everything, I think that's probably lost. Like when bands break up, it's like, well, yeah, they're 23, 24. What do you expect? Like it's either go all in or retread and reevaluate everything. And I think, as I get older, I understand that. But back then when I was 21, I'm like, why the fuck is this band that's not making any money. Why are they calling it quits? You know?
Yeah, why would you ever give this away?
Yeah, what are you thinking? Like, come play the cave again. What are you doing?
Yeah, that show is amazing. I want that to happen every night.
Right.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that's the thing though. When you know, it's kind of like when you don't have when you're less secure in the past, right? Like, which is totally how you are at those ages. You know, whether it's conscious or unconscious, right? You're kind of like, hey, I don't know what's coming. I don't know how to juggle. I haven't had to cross bridges that like give me the skill set to confidently like keep a good handful of irons in the fire at any one time, right? And I mean, looking back now, it's like, wow, that's ridiculous. My life is way the hell more complicated now.
Absolutely.
But like that's life, you know. What are you gonna do? And so yeah, I mean, we I think we did break up, and there was like final shows. I mean, I left and they replaced me for a time. I don't know if you got to any of those shows, but
I did. UMass Lowell. It was different. It was the same songs, but in my eyes, it wasn't with honor. It was like, all right, well, I don't know what's going to happen now, but
yeah, no, and then I think at the end of that period, there was sort of a more. I think it was communicated to some degree, though I don't recall. I wasn't really plugged in for obvious reasons. That it was like, okay, hey, this is not a thing anymore. But yeah, then you know, we over the years have had a number of different like good reasons to get back together. Like most of all, you know, to raise money for Sandy Hook in the wake of the school shooting there, like, or to you know, to celebrate different, you know, crucial friends along the way, or you know, just to get together because it'd be fun and why not, you know? So you sort of start to realize like, oh, we didn't, you know, you don't have to be so sort of dramatic about it.
Yeah, totally.
That's maturity, right? I mean, that's just getting older and figuring it out and knowing that, okay, we all know that we can't do this full time the way that it was in 2004. We're just going to come at it, you know, the way we can today.
Yeah.
So Boundless has been out, and you alluded to that. Maybe writing started 3 years ago. So like, what was the turning point from no writing happening to that we're now writing an album? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I'll share from my perspective, because I'm sure if you asked any one of the five of us, like it would probably come through a touch differently, right?
They were writing for 18 years. They were.
Well, I mean, at this stage, like, you know, we were further physically and just life-wise, like in that the moments where we're together for shows, recording, etc., are really special in that, you know, like Jack lives in Seattle, you know, like we live all over New England. So it's not as though we're like crossing paths every day, let alone every week. And in that time, especially during the pandemic, you know, not even every month, right? So, but it was like Furnace Fest was resurrected, and it was meant to, if I'm not mistaken, it was meant to be the fall of 2020. And Chad, who, you know, along with an incredible crew of other folks, you know, started and has been reworking Furnace Fest these years. We were a band that had played this festival in its early years, and they had contacted us of like, hey, it'd be cool to have you out. That'd be awesome. You know, we were in touch. That's cool. And they were really excited about it. And then along with that, it was coming up on 20 years for Heart Means Everything. And it was really John, our drummer's doing. He was just kind of like reaching out to different folks involved, like got in touch with Kurt, and Kurt, you know, wanted to do a remix, you know, and a remastering of it. And then, you know, we linked up with Pure Noise, and they were like really excited to put it out. And so kind of in the process, as Furnace Fest was getting delayed, you know, 2-3 times into late 2021 for, you know, because of COVID restrictions and stuff, we kind of kept talking about stuff because we had gotten to talk about this show. And then we were like, well, you know, sick. Yeah, we can't do anything about that right now. Let's just let's keep it earmarked. But like, what if we did a re-release of the vinyl for the Heart record? And then, you know, in the meantime, it was like, no, not only that, but like we could have Kurt remix it we could have Pure Noise put it out. Like it just kind of coalesced into this really cool thing. And during which they said, hey, and if you want to record new music, I mean, it sounds crazy, but if you ever wanted to make a new record, like we'll pay for it.
So if they didn't say that, would the record have happened?
I have no idea, man. I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be silly to say, yeah, it's, I mean, these things are so organic, right? So it's not literally like, I mean, because it's not as though like someone says, hey, I'll pay to make a record and poof, like 5 minutes later, it's just done. Like you just cut a check and like cash it and like, here you go, it's done. Like, I mean, it was grueling, right? And, you know, so the process was long and hard fought. And, you know, we did not want to record a shit record and put it out, you know, all this time later. Like, why? You know, there's no reason for that. So yeah, I think that whatever role that offer played, it certainly offered the opportunity to stand back and everybody kind of like scratch their heads and say, really? Like, okay, well, if we did that,
That's
what would
awesome.
that be like? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So for me, it was like, you know, between the pandemic and a lot of like major change in my personal life and just a lot of stuff going on, I was like, wow, this is like a huge gift to be able to, you know, have the opportunity to have this outlet and to write again and to see, yeah, to reintegrate something I love so much into my current life. You know, it was a necessity. So yeah, so work began and we just kind of plugged away and made it happen.
It's an awesome record. As a With Honor super fan, like for me, I listened to it and I'm like, this is that record that maybe should have come out after Heart Means Everything, before This Is Our Revenge. Like sonically, in my head, that's kind of where it fits. And
Yeah.
it's crazy that you guys kind of captured that. Well, not kind of, you did capture it almost 20 years later.
Yeah.
Were you going for anything? Were you going for anything sonically or musically?
I mean, I think everybody would answer that differently, maybe, but I think for me it was flow, right? And I get that that's pretty squishy, but like the both lyrically and melodically and just energy wise, like to have songs that spoke and conjured like strong emotion. And yeah, in the process, looking back, like and listening, you're like, oh, this kind of like pulls together the best elements, at least in my opinion. You know, you're like,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
and with like added kind of maturity in terms of songwriting, but yeah, we didn't like lay out a plan for the record of, hey, we should come off like a blank, 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 like a more this of that, right?
Right on. Yeah.
It didn't really happen that way.
For you personally, did you find the process easy, or was it, you know, a little difficult to kind of, you know, knock the rust off? How did it feel overall, you know, for you getting the five of you back together to make this record?
Yeah, well, I mean, the process was different in that, like, it was kind of more similar to the demo, actually, in that, like, we recorded the music and then I, you know, slowly, surely worked through like the vocals and the writing was really, you know, collapsed into like the, you know, into the actual tracking sessions, not into, but, you know, kind of in these like bursts of creativity around each song as I was tracking them and stuff, you know, and I worked, you know, with Greg Thomas. I don't know if you'd know Greg Thomas. He plays guitar and Silver Bullet Studios. He engineered and produced the record along with Chris Teddy and the team there. And Greg is the only other person who's ever played in With Honor. Like while Jeff was in Misery Signals, he was the writer of The Risk Taken, who I heard you mention earlier. And like Greg is family, and it would have always been on the list to record an album with him. So really this was like, it closed every loop, if that makes sense. And the recording and writing process vocally and like capturing the energy, besides being physically brutal, right? Because it just is, you know, for like
Yeah.
At this age, like it's just like it's hard on the body. But from a satisfaction standpoint and a creative, fluidity standpoint, it was everything I would have hoped for, and it was wildly natural. Like, just I think that every recording session we had, save for the EP, like the demo, like other than this, had been hard and strained. And there was almost like when you write a paper for school, you edit and you're like,
totally.
oh, really? The pain. And not to suggest that you don't have to do that, but like I think I had more in my programming that said it's not going to be good unless you have that experience. And this was just not that. This was like, just let it work. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And I love that. It was, to me, it was actually really healing. Like, I feel like
that's awesome.
I healed a lot from shit that I carry in just from like, how I was raised and stuff. You know what I mean?
I'm happy to hear you say that, because it feels like it in spots, like you're letting some stuff go, the record itself. And I first listen, I was like, holy shit. And I'm newer to With Honor than Anthony is, but I was like, man, why weren't we friends? We were friends. Why weren't we hanging out more? Why weren't you bringing me to the cave back in 03, 04? Like, this is fucking awesome, man.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad you like it. That means a lot.
Well, hopefully you can relate to this. So we're now of the age where some of the bands that we grew up with now have the opportunity to come back from the dead. Well, so to speak. Like, it's been 18 years for you. Like, I Love Crime and Stereo, it's been 13 years for them. As Friends Rust, coming up on 22 years. Well, I'm channeling back to when I was young, and my dad's favorite bands did that same thing.
Yeah.
And all those albums sucked. All those albums that my dad loved, all the bands that my dad loved, when they tried to recreate the magic, sucked.
Yeah.
But you were able to, like, not do that. And it's amazing to me. Like, I don't know, to me, the first note of My Anchor, I'm like, this had to have been written back 18 years ago, but it wasn't. And it's just like, you guys, I don't know, captured magic.
Well, I really appreciate the feedback. I mean, I take that as very high praise. Like, I don't know, at least on my end, that I imagined what a response would be. I mean, I think there's always some degree to which you're like, oh, I hope this matters. I hope that, whoever would listen to it would at least like take something out of it, even if it's like one spin. But yeah, I do think, like, I've read a fair amount of feedback on the record that's like, oh yeah, this sounds like it should have been back then, send it back. Or, there's a lot of, mixed takes on what that means. But I do think, like, one cool thing to us is that there's certainly, for us, a certain like spirit to the band. And I think that, the feedback we've gotten from people who were with us then and who have continued to be interested is that spirit is intact and is stronger on this record. And, I think for me, that's what is really special, and I don't know like what the experience is like for someone who like comes back and makes a record and they're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then they put it out and everyone's like, no.
Oh, no. That would be tough on the ego.
Yeah, that's like, it's not unusual.
No, I would say it's more often than not, right? I mean,
yeah.
Especially if, maybe you changed a band member or things ended poorly and they never got over it. Like there's all of that stuff like that can be brought to the table that can derail some sort of comeback.
You can have these bands put out records that are like very good. Like if any other band put it out, you'd love it. But for some reason, it doesn't reconcile with who they are, or like what it is like your perception and expectations, right? So it's not even like they're doing. It's more like, it happens where, hey, I needed this to be XYZ, or, I had this band built in my head in a totally different way, and here we are, and I have to like reconcile this with my hopes and expectations, and they do not match,
Right. All this time has passed, and I've just been waiting with bated breath for a new record from my favorite band, A, and they like it's really fucking good. And had it come out 3 years after their last record, I probably would have really liked it. But because 18 years has passed, fuck those guys. I'm glad that that hasn't happened for you guys, because this record's great. But that can happen a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful. I think it'll be I hope, I'm curious to see and hopeful for, like, for anyone who sits with it for some time. I'm hopeful of, like, where it can slot for people. But yeah, to be honest, like, the day we were done with it, besides like just wanting it to exist kind of out there, the process itself was the real joy to me.
That's awesome. And I like that.
So, like, we could do anything, we could do nothing. I really like the goal was met in making what we made. So, it'll be real fun. We have a bunch of shows over the next few weeks, and, we will continue to do stuff TBD. But, I think the goal was to just make something that felt pure to us. And we feel pretty good about, the Boundless record coming out.
We do want to hit on those shows. Before we do that, one last question on the record.
Sure.
We love closing tracks on albums, and Grown Up and Gone is, man, it's like In a Bottle times 10. Like, it's really fucking good. Like, I listen to that, I'm like, man, this is what I wanted. So was that always the last track?
No, I mean, again, we didn't really write for an order or like have this kind of, well, we have to have like a mid-tempo rock tune right. At the end, though it certainly comes off that way, right? Like I would have, I think honestly, I would have loved Grown Up and Gone earlier on the record. The hard part is that, like, everything is so, by and large, so fast. And I mean, it really is a departure from tone, and it slots great at the end. Like we actually really, I think what In a Bottle does at the end of the Revenge record, this actually calls back in a better way. Right. So I think
you said it better than I did. Yeah. You said,
I think it was always destined to be the last track, but yeah, I mean, I love that song, and it's like if we have the opportunity to continue writing, I mean, I would love to explore more in that direction, because it was it was a perfect example when I say, like, songs that just kind of, you just have for me, vocally and lyrically, it just kind of came right out, like it was just there waiting. You know what I mean?
Wasn't forced. It was just always something that you knew you had in you. I mean, part of your DNA almost.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, when melody and lyric intersect in that way with that ease, and and when I listen to it, regardless of critical feedback, it's like I'm just, yeah, love it. I'm so happy, so proud of how it came out. So yeah, really cool. Kind of touches a different feel. Speaking of Dave Grohl, I think it's like has like a little bit of a Dave Grohl-y kind of vibe at moments.
So I'm listening to it like an hour before we went on. Like, I've listened to it a million times, but I was walking my dog, nice ambiance, and at like the 55-second mark, there's like a Deftonesy "Be Quiet and Drive" guitar thing going on. And as a big Deftones fan, I'm like, I'm all in on this. I don't know if any of the guys like Deftones, but I heard that and I was like, I can hear it.
I would say that, I mean, the big influences for that song were probably like Deftones and Hum.
All right, so I'm not wrong. All right, for once.
Yeah, epic bands that we all have loved for a long time.
And another band that put out a record after a long period of time that fucking ruled, the Hum record from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, great band.
So good. So you guys just played Furnace Fest. We're talking to you a little over about a week after, right? Yeah. And how'd it go? How did the new songs hit? How was the whole experience for you guys?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's bonkers. Like, the fest is crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's have you, either of you been, or no?
Never been. Nope.
One of the things the fest has, beyond like an insane lineup that I'm sure anyone who's listening is seen, and I mean, it's absolutely crazy these last 3 years. But like, the property, the Sloss Furnace where the fest is held, is just ideal. I mean, it's just the coolest, weirdest, haunted old factory that's like the backdrop, to this thing. And the people who run it are like just pure awesome people that, there's no hint of, the kind of what we years ago would have kind of tagged as, the typical bullshit for like big festivals. So yeah, I mean, bands top to bottom were awesome. Lots of awesome young bands. It was great to play. We played what they call the shed stage, which is like, it's right inside this corrugated metal roof shed where they used to pour molten pig iron, to cool in these, big pieces that would be shipped everywhere. Kind of like, the history of that mill. But yeah, and it's just a giant rust bucket. Like it's got a huge vibe. So yeah, the only complaint I have is going home early. I had to leave to take off just because of stuff going on at home. But it was incredible.
Yeah, we saw some videos and the crowd showed up. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. It's all enclosed. And yeah. I saw some, like we follow the Furnace Fest account. They built up like with concrete and everything. Like it's, they dropped some coin there, but that's so new songs. Were people knowing them?
Well received, which was awesome. It was great to play those. We played a show last spring out this way in Rhode Island with Gorilla Biscuits, which of course wouldn't say no to that opportunity. Huge fan. And we played a new song there. But yeah, we had a handful of new songs in the set, which was awesome. And it was great to see people respond to those. And we played songs top to bottom, I think, off of every release. So it was, it's always cool to vary it in the set, and you kind of have like different generations of people who are like into the music. And yeah, I mean, the turnout to the festival was fantastic. And, I did not see a band play that did not get 100%, it would seem, from their crowd. So it was
That's
great.
Awesome.
And yeah, the night capped off for me. I mean, to watch a band like Braid play Frame and Canvas, front to back. Not sure if you were ever fans, but
oh yeah,
it was, to go from that to like seeing Hatebreed on the shed stage, without a barrier at this stage. It's like, where else can you get that show? It was awesome.
I know all the videos made
the
me
videos
so
are
jealous.
wild. Yeah, I was just that's exactly what I was going to say. The videos are wild. So
yeah,
someday we'll get down there and cover that as a podcast, hopefully.
Yeah, you absolutely should. It's like I think they've released, though. I mean, I have no inside scoop on this, so just be very clear for your listeners. They did announce like like early birds on next year's. And it would seem like maybe next year is the last of this kind of multi-year iteration.
Agreed. Yeah, I saw it. It's out there. Yeah, but it opened itself up that it could be something else too. You know what I mean? It could be.
Absolutely could. We'll see. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, regardless, they are doing it well. Is the bottom line. It is a pleasure to join.
So Todd, before we get you out of here, this episode is going to come out on October 9th. You guys have a record release show for Boundless at the Space Ballroom in Hamden, Connecticut on October 13th.
Yep.
With Standstill from Long Island, Ambitions, familiar names. You might know those guys. You got Hard Target. Who else is playing that show?
Hard Target and Jealous Mind. No, it's stoked. I mean, it's a great lineup. We've had the pleasure of playing with Standstill. It's been a little while now. I don't know if you are up on those guys, but they're fantastic. And Jealous Mind and Hard Target are both on the way up, like awesome bands. I think one of the coolest things, like especially just given how like, where life is at, with my just personally for me, it's like, it's so cool to reconnect with the scene and to like hear bands on the way up and like what people are doing. Because like things are just crazy and full, and it's like I think that's one aspect of this new chapter for With Honor that I'm super excited about. So excited to play with those guys.
So yeah, if you're listening to this on release day or the day before, day after, whatever, go get tickets. Right? There's still tickets available, or just sell out?
Tickets available. There'll be tickets at the door. you know, of course, I mean, I guess I should say like we're low, so I mean, you want to buy them in advance, but no, I mean it's going to be a fun night. Space is a great venue. I don't know if you guys have ventured down, but if ever you're able, great spot for really exciting shows. And we're happy to be back there. We were there not this past spring, but the spring before for a couple nights in a row, which was awesome. So yeah, come on out.
Sweet. Well, hey, Todd, we're going to get you out of here. I can speak for myself and Tony. This was everything we thought. Like, there's some conversations where you almost don't want to have because it might impact, you know, like these like God tier bands. And at least for me, that's what it is. And you lived up to it, and whole new appreciation, especially for the new material. Like, the album's fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, Boundless, Pure Noise Records, so fucking good. Like, go listen to it. Pause this episode, go listen to it.
Come back. Well, you're at the end of it, so you can just go listen to it now.
Yeah, just go listen to it. Don't even listen to us ramble on. Yeah. But Todd, we appreciate it. This is fucking awesome.
No, Anthony, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time. You guys are super cool. I really appreciate you being so kind and supportive and, you know, sharing your excitement about what we're doing. It's like really humbling and really means the world to me. I'm sure to the other guys when they hear this. But,
yeah, awesome.
Wish you the best. And hey, man, I get this immediate feeling, just for the record, like that. I don't know if you've ever done this episode, and if you have 10 times over, I apologize. But if you're ever up for like an episode just about the two of you, and you need someone to like interview, like do the reverse interview, kind of like,
man.
I mean, I'm not gonna say no. I mean,
we could, yeah. Hey, if you're, we could go down the line if you wanna curate that. That'd be fucking awesome.
I would love to do it, man. I mean, I would have to imagine your followership would love it, and like, you just seem cool, man. I think old friends are like one of the greatest gifts in life. We'll talk offline.
Wait, what do you know about that? You don't know anything about that.
But yeah, I'm gonna get in touch and make sure that happens if you're up for it. But
I'm in.
Be a blast, absolutely, yeah. Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you talking about the new record, talking about the old days, and all of the stuff in between, because it was an itch that we definitely wanted to scratch.
No doubt. I will look forward to seeing you at the cave in some. All right, friend. Be good, okay?
Thank you for listening to Podio Slave. We are at Podio Slave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podio Slave Podcast. YouTube, Podio Slave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.